I'm glad you pointed that out, that companies will actually help you, with the licensing process if that's the career track that you're on. Like I said earlier when I was introducing you, when, just connecting with you, one of the things that really resonated was the fact that, oftentimes when we hear about insurance, we see, okay, you're going to get licensed, you're going to work with the company, 100% commission, go do your thing. Because that's the way that I came into the business. That's what I learned. However, I kind of switched over to a corporate side a little bit later on in my career. You've kind of been on that track since the beginning. How'd you get it? One, how'd you get exposed to that? Two, can you speak to, that opportunity versus, because I know you've done some of the other side too, versus, the independent commission side, the corporate side versus the independent commission side?
Great. So it really depends on the individual and where they are in their life experience. So for a young person who's starting out, who really doesn't have any responsibilities, they may have some student loan debt, but they don't have a family and they're really not established. And so they can take the risk, I'll call it, to leap out and even establish their own business. You can say, I want to set up my own agency, I want to run my business, and you can go for that. And I would encourage people to look at that option because that is a very lucrative option for individuals, and they can really, really be successful. Then on the other hand, let's say you're a little older, you've got a family, you're established now, and you need health insurance benefits, and you've got some other responsibilities. That's when you can explore being a captive agent with an insurance company, whether it's a health insurance company, a life insurance company, property and casualty insurance company, is going to provide you that benefit level where you'll have your health insurance and other benefits, and then you can raise your family, with that company. Of course, those are usually still commission positions that you have, and so that's a track as well and something to consider. But in any decision that you make when it comes to insurance, just like any other employment, is that really each individual has to look at their own situation and determine which is the best way for them to go. I say risk because, of course, in insurance, that's what we do. We cover risk, but we have to think about risk even in our own lives as we're making our career moves.
Absolutely. So what was the determining factor for you to going the sales route versus just staying healthcare? Obviously, you could have still, accomplished a very successful career just staying in the healthcare and the customer service side. You could have been a manager there, could have moved up operations, the whole shebang. What is it that moved you towards the sales side versus, staying in that servicing side?
It's a great question. So people don't believe this, but once they get to know me, I'm very competitive. And so I get a real charge out of getting one up on the competition or closing the deal, closing the sale, the whole negotiation process. So that's really intrigues me. It's one of those things where, you got someone in front of you, they're trying to make a decision about whether to actually buy your product. But I always tell individuals that I'm mentoring and coaches is that really they buy you first,
yes,
and then they buy your product. So it is that whole thing of the communication skills, again, that we talked about before, where you learn that the power of what I call connectivity, yes, where you go in and if you're meeting with someone, you find ways to connect with that individual. And then once they've actually connected with you and they buy you from the standpoint of what they feel is a comfortable person they can do business with, then the rest of it is the negotiation process as I see it. And then how do we come to a win-win, not only for what I'm selling, but also for that individual to make sure that we've met the needs of that person that's buying.
Absolutely. So look, you're sharing some tips and you're sharing some tools. You're kind of giving a little bit of a lesson even to, some young people, regardless of the industry that they're in, just in, creating and cultivating relationships, some of the sales psychology. At what point in your career did you make that transition from being, that sales representative to saying, hey, look, I know that I'm ready to manage and lead others and coach others to be successful as well?
Well, so I think that could be, again, it could be at any point in someone's career. Once you have mastered the basic skills, then it becomes, are you exposing yourself to all of the industry standards, what the trends are? Also, are you forward thinking, looking ahead to see exactly what's going on in the industry? And so what's happening with consumers, how are they buying, their buying patterns, what their decision-making process is around how they buy and how they select. If once you've gotten all of those things and you have mastered that, you could be someone who has been in the industry 5 years. I mean, I wouldn't put a time limit on it as to when a person is at that point, but it really is up to that individual to determine, how much they want to expose themselves and learn and be exposed to resources that are out there. And then even seeking mentors that have been in the business for a long time. So whomever's listening to this, it can be an intergenerational situation where, you can learn from someone who is much older, and then that person who's much older can learn from someone who's just entering the industry. Because when you meet together, you'll find that, we all bring something to the table, and we don't want to dismiss, any of that. So I wouldn't say to anyone, put a time limit on, when this happens. It's just that how willing are you to really do the work to make it happen?
Yeah. On that mentor piece, you mentioned the mentorship, and I know people that consider you a mentor, right? So did you know that that's where your career was going to be headed, that you would mentor other people in the industry within the companies that you were working at? One, did you know that? Two, was that something that you embraced, once folks just started kind of gravitating towards you?
So I think that everyone has some gift or talent that they are given, and it's really up to those individuals to kind of find out what that is. Some people are good at administration. Some people are good at teaching and mentoring. Other people have other gifts and talents that they bring. For me, it was one of those things where, as time went on, I found myself in that role. And it's all about, in some cases, paying it forward. I find a lot of times people like to hold on to what they've gathered, and they feel like, I worked my way and paid my way, and so now you have to do the same thing, as opposed to gifting people with what you've learned in your experience, and then letting people have the advantage of having the gift that you got, and so paying it forward, and going back and helping and bringing that next person up. That's kind of how I try to live in this industry. We get this knowledge, and it is not for us to hold on to it, and if we're not intimidated by the folks that come along, it is all about helping the next person become successful.
Yeah. This business, sometimes it feels like is hidden, like it's kind of tucked away, especially in our community, the African American community. You don't hear about it as much. Why do you think that is? I just want to know I just want to hear your thoughts around it, because you just spoke to, hey, you got to help the next person, and in our business, like, no, don't let anybody know what you're doing. Why do you think that is?
Well, now let's be real. In our community, first and foremost is that our community is underinsured. We as a community, in most cases and in some spaces, don't see the value of insurance. And so I feel like the first things that can help move that narrative and the mindset that insurance is very valuable. We all need it. It's going to reduce some of the risk that you may be exposed to. And so then it won't impact you financially. And so I think the first step is for us to help educate our community on the importance of insurance and what that really means. And then the other piece of that is, as I mentioned, career-wise in school, in high school, and in most universities, you really don't see or have a track for insurance, kind of. And it may be out there. I just, in my time, I wasn't exposed to that. And so helping maybe insurance agents like you and me going into high schools and into universities and having discussions with, students at that age, to help them figure out that this may be something you want to look at.
Yeah.
And so I think that would be a start in our community, especially.
Absolutely. So getting educated, one, on the value, of just having insurance coverages, and then looking at the viability of a career path and bringing that value to the community in which you live and exist.
Yes.
Essentially. Okay. No, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. So, coming from your background, how do you feel, and when I say your background, I'm talking, Halifax County, small town, coming up, working class family, having some exposure to this industry, but probably in the same position like many of us, including myself, where it wasn't really on the radar, as a child. How do you feel that has influenced you as you've continued to conduct your business now, as a professional in this space?
Well, that is really why I'm even more passionate about this now, right? Because what I'm seeing is that I understand the importance of insurance, whether it's health, life, homeowners, auto, whatever that insurance is, travel insurance. So there are all of these things that will reduce the risk for an individual and help them not have a huge financial loss for something that could have been prevented, where they could have actually had some protection. I'm not saying it's 100% protection, but they would at least have some protection in most situations. Now, we know that there are always exclusions to all policies, so not everything is covered. But for those things that they would have covered under a normal or traditional insurance policy, that they would have that. And so, it's important for us to be aware of that as we're working with individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. Has getting licensed, do you feel like you coming from the journalism background, communication background, do you feel like, being in this industry has grown you as a person, like, over the years?
Oh, definitely. So the industry has grown me, for sure. And I am proud to say that I actually have just accepted a management position with the managed care organization that will grow me even more. And I would challenge, anyone that, you continue to grow, even, as you get older. There's nothing that says you have to stop. I just saw a documentary about a company that had strategically decided they wanted to lay off older employees, right? And so what you have, though, is that, if you're a licensed insurance agent, whatever industry you're in, there is no risk of you having to be concerned about your age, because you can carry that license, until you pass away, and you can certainly continue to sell products. No one's gonna tell you no, and you're not welcome here, because you can create your own path, up until the time that you feel like you don't want to work anymore. So one of the things that I've seen and I'm experiencing in this now is that it is that this industry provides you a career path until you say, hey, I'm pretty done. But then the residual part of that, depending on what part of the industry you're in, because you can still continue to make commissions even in that space. So it's kind of a neat place to put yourself in. If you're strategic, you can really make that work.